We are a society of notoriously unhappy people. Lonely, anxious, depressed, destructive, dependent. People who are glad when we have killed the time we are trying so hard to save. Since the advent of the Industrial Revolution, humans have come a long way. We started to dominate nature and control our own lives in a way that people of the previous generations would have never imagined. Machines slowly replaced animal and human labor, and computers now take on various forms to make our lives easier. In terms of technology and the availability of material goods, the rapid advancements of the past 2 decades or so is nothing short of a miracle. Almost all of us today have a small computer in our pockets, and we live in an age of abundance. Erich Fromm eloquently wrote, "The trinity of unlimited production, absolute freedom, and unrestricted happiness form the nucleus of a new religion, progress, and a new earthly city of progress was to replace the city of God." It is not at all astonishing that this new religion provided its believers with energy, vitality, and hope. However, as we can see from the opening quote, Erich Fromm recognized that our society is filled with unhappy individuals, and unfortunately this remains true today. We have astonishing technology around us and have nearly unlimited access to knowledge, entertainment, and even art, yet mental health issues across the society seem to be on the rise. So what is the problem here? Erich Fromm's 1976 book, To Have or To Be, can provide us with vital insights regarding this problem. This work centers around the core idea that there are 2 modes of living present in our society, the having mode and the being mode. We will examine what these 2 modes look like, how they affect day-to-day lives including our speech, and what we can do about them. So let's dive right in. 2 modes of existence. To demonstrate the difference between the having mode and the being mode, Erich Fromm shares poems from 2 respected poets. One work by the 17th century British poet Alfred Tennyson, and another by 15th century Japanese poet Matsuo Basho. Let's first take a look at the work by Lord Tennyson. Flower in a crannied wall, I pluck you out of the crannies. I hold you here, root and all, in my hand. Little flower, but if I could understand what you are, root and all in all, I should know what God and man is. And now the poem by Matsuo Basho. When I look carefully, I see the Nazuna blooming by the hedge. And for everyone that's curious about how the original looks and sounds, yoku mireba, Nazuna hanasaku, kakine kana. Erich Fromm finds the difference between the 2 poems rather striking. It seems that Tennyson needs to possess the flower in order to understand and appreciate its existence on this planet. In contrast, all Basho wants is to look carefully and observe the flower. There is absolutely no desire to possess it. This is the difference between the 2 modes of existence in a nutshell. In the having mode, there is a constant need for possession, whether it be a flower, land, or material goods. While the having mode revolves around objects, the being mode is about the person and the people around. In the being mode, we enjoy life as is, without a desire to own everything. As you may have guessed, the having mode is unfortunately the social norm today. A lot of us today don't feel like we are growing or have direction in life unless we buy and obtain something new. To show how pervasive this mode of living is, Erich Fromm carefully examines how our speech in English-speaking countries has changed over time. Consider the following example. Erich Fromm writes, "Assume that a person seeking a psychoanalyst's help opens the conversation with the following sentence. Doctor, I have a problem. I have insomnia. Although I have a beautiful house, nice children, and a happy marriage, I have many worries." Some decades ago, instead of "I have a problem," the patient probably would have said, "I am troubled." Instead of "I have insomnia," "I cannot sleep." Instead of "I have a happy marriage," "I am happily married." Erich Fromm is pointing out here how the verb have started to become more and more common in our speech over the decades. As seen in this example, everything is about having instead of experiencing. We always seem to have some noun, whether it be a problem, insomnia, or family. It might seem obvious once pointed out, but this style of speech is very common today. It's been almost 50 years since Erich Fromm wrote this book, and if anything, matters only got worse. We are a culture absolutely obsessed with having more and more. Fromm also points out that the having mode isn't just about physical possessions, but consumption in general, including excessive eating and drinking. Fromm cynically states, "The consumer is the eternal suckling crying for the bottle." This is obvious in pathological phenomena, such as alcoholism and drug addiction. So even if we don't have a problem with excessive and unnecessary shopping, for example, if we have a constant need to consume various foods and beverages, that is a clear indication that we are living in the having mode. If one were to live in the being mode, there would be an equal amount of emphasis on the creation of food, not just the consumption. We can now see that the two modes of living extend to everyday speech as well as food. Now let's look at how the two modes look like in other areas of life, such as education, reading, faith, and even love. When it comes to learning, Erich Fromm makes a very clear distinction. The student in the having mode just takes in information without really questioning anything and just holds on to the information as it is. On the other hand, the student in the being mode listens to the given information carefully and engages with it by questioning it or creating something new from it. They receive the words and ideas in a much more productive manner. Erich Fromm describes the former in the following way. Students in the having mode have but one aim: to hold on to what they learned, either by entrusting it firmly to their memories or by carefully guarding their notes. They do not have to produce or create something new. In fact, the having type individuals feel rather disturbed by new thoughts or ideas about a subject because the new puts into question the fixed sum of information they have. We all can probably think of someone that falls into this style of learning, or perhaps we are one of them. Either way, Erich Fromm points out a very crucial difference between the two. Going along the lines of learning, remembering can operate in two different ways as well. While the having mode version of remembering is purely mechanical, Erich Fromm explains that in the being mode, remembering is actively recalling words, ideas, sights, paintings, music. That is, connecting the single datum to be remembered and the many other data that it is connected with. The connections in the case of being are neither mechanical nor purely logical, but alive. The divide between the two modes of existence can show up in conversations as well. These days, we can find debates all over the internet, particularly political ones. What ends up happening with a lot of these debates is that the two sides come with a set of information and thoughts, with the ultimate goal of proving that the other side is wrong and that they are the morally and intellectually virtuous ones. Very rarely do we see civil conversations that respect the different perspectives, seek common ground, and realize that both sides may have a small piece of the truth that can then be combined into a new idea that leads us to progress. But this type of conversation is exactly what is needed in today's society, and it exemplifies the being mode. Erich Fromm writes, "They come fully alive in the conversation because they do not stifle themselves by anxious concern with what they have. Their own aliveness is infectious and often helps the other person to transcend his or her egocentricity. Thus, the conversation ceases to be an exchange of commodities, information, knowledge, status, and becomes a dialogue in which it does not matter anymore who is right." If we have experienced this kind of dialogue at all, we know exactly what this feels and looks like, but unfortunately it seems to be increasingly rare these days. Similar to learning and remembering, reading in the having mode consists of a shallow understanding of the text, whereas the being mode is more engaged. Erich Fromm writes, "The so-called excellent students are the ones who can most accurately repeat what each of the various philosophers had to say. They are like a well-informed guide at a museum. What they do not learn is that which goes beyond this kind of property knowledge." These readers in the having mode do not question the writers. They don't even try to talk to the writers, so to speak. They are not aware of any contradictions of the writer, or sometimes just ignore certain issues present in their ideas. Erich Fromm continues even further by pointing out that there is a clear difference between the two modes of living when it comes to faith. Fromm believed that in the having mode, faith is something we cling to, almost like a security blanket. It's a set of ideas we adopt to feel certain, in order to avoid the struggle of finding meaning on our own. But in the being mode, faith isn't just about subscribing to a belief system. It's an attitude, a way of trusting ourselves, others, and life itself. It's not about having faith like a possession, but about living in faith, letting it guide us from deep within. It's much harder to attain this type of faith, but that is exactly what Erich Fromm is encouraging all of us to go after. Now, let's see what he has to say about the concept of love. When we think about love in the having mode, it's not really about caring, it's about controlling. Fromm argues that a lot of what we call love actually isn't love at all. It's about trying to own or mold another person to fit our needs and desires. Even in parenting, this shows up when parents see their kids as extensions of themselves rather than independent beings with their own needs and desires. It's a sobering idea, but helps us see how real love is something entirely different. So what does love in the being mode look like? Erich Fromm states, "The truth is, there is no such thing as love. Love is an abstraction, perhaps a goddess or an alien being, although nobody has ever seen this goddess. In reality, there exists only the act of loving. To love is a productive activity. It implies caring for, knowing, responding, affirming, enjoying the person, the tree, the painting, the idea. It means bringing to life, increasing his, her, its aliveness. It is a process, self-renewing and self-increasing." As we see here, Fromm believes that love in the being mode has no hint of possessiveness, and it's really about the person we love and not ourselves. When a parent loves a child, it's about the child's well-being and growth in the truest sense, not the parent's narrow-minded idea of what constitutes the child's success and well-being. The parent talks with the child and listens to the child. The parent must affirm the child's ideas and desires, then guide them accordingly. The parent must express to the child that they deeply care for them and want to find ways to nurture them properly. So we spent a lot of time looking at how the two modes of living show up in different areas of our lives. Our mode of living really is a mindset, and it is quite pervasive. And once again, the having mode is the most common mindset in our society today. It has been that way for decades, if not centuries. But as Erich Fromm illustrated through various examples, the being mode really is the more desirable way of leading our lives. The having mode doesn't just cost us time and money. It actually worsens life experiences all across the board. So what can we all do as individuals to shift our lives into the being mode? What can we do as a collective or a society to move away from the having mode? Or are we simply too deep into the having mode with no means of escape? We will cover these questions in part 2. Thank you for watching.